Hello friends, we continue our vivid and unforgettable journey back in time to a time when every detail mattered, and status among peers was based on very different principles than it is today. If you grew up in the 70s or 80s in the USA, this video will make you smile, feel sad at the memories, and maybe even hear in your inner ear the distinctive click of a cassette tape being inserted into a VCR or the echo of the gymnasium where school dances were held. We will go back to the times when coolness was measured not by the number of followers on social networks or likes under photos, but by what kind of lunchbox you have with Star Wars characters, how well you can repeat the movements to Billie Jean by Michael Jackson, how many posters with Johnny Depp or posters of your favorite rock band on the wall you had. Today we're diving into the teenage dreams and high school realities of that era, when the world seemed a little simpler, but status among peers was much more complex and multifaceted. It was a time when being in meant putting in some effort, and that effort shaped not only closet, but character as well. Ready for the final push on this journey into the past? And then let's go! Wearing iconic clothing. Clothing was a powerful visual language that defined who was who in the school hierarchy. Levi's 501 jeans were an absolute classic. Not just pants, but a symbol of freedom and timeless American style, worn until they were perfectly worn and soft. Members-only jackets with their distinctive shoulder straps were a symbol of elite membership, a sign that you were in the game and following the trends. Anyone who didn't have one was clearly out of the game, even if the jacket was just similar. Preppy shirts, Izod Lacoste or Ralph Lauren polo shirts, blazers, chinos pants, hinted at belonging to a more affluent circle or simply a desire for neat, correct style, even if you were a rebel. Leather jackets, kusuhi or bomber jackets, screamed love of rock, rebellion, and readiness for adventure. Girls' leggings and neon tops, especially those with a jammy effect, were a vivid manifestation of the aerobics and pop culture energy of the 80s. Tulip skirts or tight pencil skirts with high waists were also popular with the girls, while the guys wore boiled or acidic jeans, guess Jordache Lee, and t-shirts with large logos of rock bands or sports teams. Each item, each brand told its own story and was part of the complex visual language of the teenage and high school subculture of the 80s, where clothes were your calling card. Have a fashionable hairstyle. The hairstyle in the 70s and 80s was a manifesto, a way to express oneself, one's musical identity and status. Girls had a cult of volume. Hair was frizzed, chemo, permanent perm, was done to achieve a huge mop, which was then fixed with tons of Aquanet varnish. The lingering smell of this varnish is still a symbol of the era. Guys wore a variety of haircuts. The mullet, short in the front and sides, long in the back, was controversial but iconic. Feathers, layered haircuts framing the face like Farrah Fawcett's in the 70s. Wet hair gel styles or slick back bangs and wings over the ears were popular. Hairstyles were a work of art. The higher, more voluminous or brighter, sometimes dyeing individual strands or tips, the better. The morning rituals of lacquering and styling hair could take half an hour or even an hour, especially before school or a party, requiring patience and skill with a blow dryer, comb, and tons of mousse or gel. Hairdressers were inspired by MTV clips, rock star images, and fashion from the runways. Hair was a way of self-expression, a reflection of musical tastes and moods, and sometimes even political views. Sometimes styles reached comical proportions, defying gravity, but it only added to popularity and recognizability. Heroes of TV series and music videos set trends, and school children sought to emulate them, often with varying degrees of success. Listen to the right music. In an era before the internet and streaming, music was a powerful social glue and a way to identify. Being a fan of the right band or artist, Michael Jackson, his videos were revolutionary. Madonna, her changing image and sass. Prince, his uniqueness and genius. The Police, Bon Jovi, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, Run DMC, or the Beastie Boys, was a sign of status and belonging to a certain hangout. Music formed subcultures: rockers, metalheads, new wave fans, hip-hoppers. Each had its own dress code, slang, and of course, its own set of cult albums. The cassette covers were carefully kept, sometimes even hand-decorated by drawing covers or collages. Bragging about a rare album, imported record, or bootleg from a concert was a matter of honor. Exchanging cassettes in the school hallway or after school was a ritual, a way to expand your musical horizons and find like-minded people. The louder the music played from your boombox, if you had one, another sign of coolness. The cooler you looked. It was also a way to express rebellion and independence from parental tastes. Have a Walkman. The legendary Sony Walkman, the portable cassette player, was a true symbol of personal freedom and independence in the 80s. It allowed you to listen to your favorite music at recess, on the way to school, on the bus, walking down the street. You created your own soundtrack to life. Headphones, often large, foam or small earbuds. Wearing brightly colored clothes or just sticking out of your ears meant, I'm in my own world, don't get in the way, and I look cool. The Walkman became a way to disconnect from the noise around you and immerse yourself in your own atmosphere, your own thoughts, your own music. Whoever had a Walkman, they were relatively expensive, had control over their mood, and was the object of envy. Many hid it under their jackets in class and secretly listened to music at the risk of being caught by the teacher. Having it made you advanced. The audio cassettes you listened to on the Walkman were often decorated with drawings, stickers with band names or playlists, and the buttons on the player, play, stop, rewind, fast forward, were pressed with a special thrill and a familiar mechanical click. It was a device that changed the way people consume music and became an integral part of the image of the cool teenager. Watch and discuss trendy movies. In the 80s, movies had a huge influence on teen culture. John Hughes movies like The Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 16 Candles, and the iconic Back to the Future, Top Gun, Dirty Dancing, Footloose were not just movies, but part of the cultural code of a generation. Phrases from there instantly became high school slang and were quoted everywhere. Each movie was a whole world that teenagers dreamed of entering, and its characters became idols, inspiring style, behavior, and even life attitudes. They were quoted at recess, discussed in the cafeteria lines, copied in their mannerisms and dress. Tapes of these movies, when they were released on VHS, changed hands and were watched to death. Sometimes we organized joint screenings at friends' homes, turning the living room into a mini cinema. To be in the know, to know all the quotes and understand the references meant to be accepted in cool companies and to be part of the general cultural space. Movies shaped dreams, created role models, and provided topics for endless conversations. Skateboarding or BMX. Skateboarding and BMX biking were an important part of the street culture of the 70s and 80s, symbolizing freedom, risk, and independence. Skaters and cyclists often gathered in school parking lots after school, in specially built or improvised in abandoned swimming pools and construction sites, courts, or simply on city streets, performed stunts to attract attention and admiration or condemnation. They often wore a certain uniform, Vans or Converse sneakers, ripped jeans, wide shorts, t-shirts with prints of their favorite skate brands or bands. These guys were always the center of attention. They were watched, admired, and copied. Skateboarding and BMX gave freedom of movement, a chance to stand out from the crowd of ordinary teenagers and prove their courage and agility. Risky stunts, jumping, sliding on the railing, metal scraping, falls and bruises were respected even if they were not always successful. The street style of such athletes quickly became fashionable among the rest of the world, influencing the overall aesthetic. Music, punk rock, hardcore, adrenaline, bruises, and a sense of freedom were an integral part of this lifestyle. The ability to stand confidently on a board or make jumps on a bike was equated with social currency and brought respect in one's community and beyond. Being part of the cool crowd in the school world of the 70s and 80s, there was a clear social hierarchy, and to be part of the most popular kids, the cool crowd, was a cherished dream of many. It didn't always mean being the most handsome or rich. It was important not only to look good, but also to have self-confidence, charisma, the ability to joke, keep style, and of course, to be accepted by the leaders of this group. Such companies set the rhythm of the whole school. They were the first to know about new fashion trends, music, the best parties, and dictated what was cool and what was lame. Being invited to their parties was the ultimate reward and a pass to the high society of the school. Being around them meant being in the game, being noticed, having access to the most interesting events and gossip. In each such party, there were different roles: the undisputed leader, his right-hand man, the pretty boy, the joker, the fashionista. From the outside, they could look like a teenage version of Hollywood, embodying the ideals imposed by movies and television. Being confident, ultimately the real cool in the 70s and 80s, came not so much from the most expensive clothes or the coolest Walkman, but from inner self-confidence. A confident gait, the ability to look the other person in the eye, bold and witty remarks, the ability to be yourself and not bend to other people's expectations. That's what was really valued. The most respected and influential teenagers were not always the prettiest or the noisiest, but the most confident and charismatic. It was felt in the way they held themselves in class. Confidence was contagious and attractive. It made a person noticeable and interesting. Even the simplest clothes looked stylish if worn by a confident person. The ability to calmly defend his opinion in a conversation with a teacher or peers was admired. Most importantly, this confidence helped to survive in the complex school hierarchy, to cope with ridicule, rejection, and social pressure. The development of this confidence through achievements in sports, studies, creativity, and positive communication was a key moment of adolescent maturation. Mastering game technology. Whoever had an Atari 2600 with its switch-like joysticks, a Nintendo Entertainment System, NES, with its gray rectangular joypad, or the more serious Commodore 64 with its keyboard and downloading games from cassettes or floppy disks, was automatically in the big leagues of school society. It wasn't just a kid, it was the center of attraction for all the friends in the neighborhood. Playing Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Space Invaders, Pitfall on the Atari, Super Mario Bros., Zelda, Metroid on the NES, Lode Runner, Pirates on the C64, and discussing at recess how to pass the next level, where to find a hidden life, or how to defeat a boss. It was not just a conversation, it was a way of life, a special language of the initiated. Such children often gathered at their homes whole mini-parties, where everyone took turns sitting down at the console, hotly discussing strategy, passing the joystick after the death of a character, and encouraging the player. The ability to pass a complicated game without cheats or to know secret codes, like the famous Konami code, caused sincere respect and admiration. Video games in the 80s united teenagers as powerfully as online games do today, but they did so physically in the same room, creating real social bonds and a sense of community. A console or computer was more than just a piece of technology. It was a ticket to a select club, proof of a family's advancement, and an endless source of entertainment and social capital. The sounds of pixel tunes from favorite games, the feel of the plastic joystick in your hand, the smell of heated electronics, it's all part of the nostalgic picture. Having access to VCR and videotapes, in a world before streaming services and digital downloads, the ability to invite friends over to watch a movie on VHS was a true luxury and a sign of high social status. A VCR video recorder was a fairly expensive device for most families in the early 80s, and having one at home meant that the family was keeping up with the times and could afford the extra spending on entertainment and movie rentals. Whoever had a collection of movies on cassette tapes at home had a real treasure, and their awesomeness was instantly magnified. Especially valued were rare records, movies that had not yet been released in wide distribution, action, horror, sci-fi, or cartoons that were not shown on TV. Sometimes movies were recorded from television, especially MTV clips or concerts, and it was an art form to press record in time, remove the commercials, adjust the sound and picture properly, and record on a clean tape, not on top of something important. Family video rental stores like Blockbuster were becoming a cult place to go as a family or with friends, wandering between the rows of shelves, choosing movies by their covers as if you were visiting a mini cinema. True connoisseurs even labeled the cassettes with movie titles, decorated the boxes, or rewrote the annotations. The buzz of the tape rewinding, the hiss of the sound on a bad recording, the feel of the plastic box in your hands, all part of the ritual. The VCR was a portal to the world of movies that you could watch anytime. Pause, which was revolutionary, and having it at home made you the center of attraction for friends and the site of the coolest movie parties. Bring fancy food to lunch. School lunch in the 80s was not only a way to get a refreshment, but also a daily display of fashion and status. A packed lunch with foods that were advertised on TV and were emblematic of the 80s American food industry was the envy of the entire cafeteria. Capri Sun Tetra Paks with their juicy, sweet drink and the opportunity to pierce the foil with a colorful tube, ritual. Lunchables sets, crackers, cheese, sausage, candy, all individually, assemble your lunch yourself. Reese's peanut butter cups, Twinkies bars, Hostess cupcakes with cream filling, all were the pinnacle of high school gastronomic chic. A stylish lunchbox with bright images of Star Wars, Transformers, G.I. Joe, He-Man, or favorite cartoons also added points of coolness and was an object of envy. Some purposely left the wrappers from cool candy or packages out in the open so everyone could see that they had real, branded, fancy food, not a foil sandwich or an apple made by mom. Sharing a goodie from their cool lunch with someone was a sure way to make friends or strengthen existing ties. It was an act of generosity and a show of status. Home-cooked food, even the tastiest and healthiest, often seemed unfashionable and boring against the branded packaging and hype supermarket treats. Lunch was not just a meal, but a mini presentation of your style, taste, and your family's wealth. The smell of chocolate from Twinkies, the sweet taste of Capri Sun, the rustle of plastic Lunchables packages, the glint of foil from the wrappers. These sensory memories are still strong in those who grew up in that era. Have your own phone, or at least know how to talk on it for hours. In the 70s and 80s, home phones, landline, corded, were commonplace, but personal phones in a teenager's room were a rarity and a sign of special privilege and trust from parents. Those who had them were considered the true elite of school socialization. Phone conversations in the evenings with friends, classmates, or the object of affection were an important, even central part of the cool teenage life, allowing them to discuss everything from school gossip and homework to first romantic experiences and weekend plans without or with minimal parental supervision. Long wires stretching across the house to the room, or a machine screwed to the wall near the bed with a long, twisted cord of the receiver, a classic picture of an evening in the 80s. Sometimes you had to negotiate with your parents to keep the receiver on the other machine in the living room or kitchen, or eavesdrop on the conversation, which of course was difficult. The iconic phrase of a parent coming from the other room, "You're on the phone again. How much talking can you do? Hang up the phone, I have to make a call," is also an integral part of this culture. The ability to chat casually for hours, joke, flirt, or seriously discuss important teenage issues over the phone added confidence, social status, and was considered an important interpersonal skill. The telephone was a bridge to the world outside the family, a personal channel of communication in an era before messengers and social media, and its presence in a private room was a symbol of autonomy and popularity. The sound of disc dialing or the clacking of tone dial buttons, the long beep of the receiver whispering into the receiver so no one would hear, the rustle of the wire as you walk around the room while talking, all part of the ritual of evening phone vigils. Going to high school parties and dances, prom, homecoming, or just disco in the gym were central social events in the life of the American teenager of the 70s and 80s, a kind of arena for displaying status, style, and seeking relationships. The ability to dance to the hits of Michael Jackson, Billie Jean, Thriller, Beat It, Kenny Loggins, Footloose, Madonna, or other stars of the era, cool, often bought especially for the evening. Clothes, self-confidence, and charisma made you the star of the dance floor and the object of everyone's attention and admiration. Those who did not come to the parties or who were not invited automatically fell out of the circle of cool or socially active, deprived of the opportunity to participate in the main event of the week or month. Preparation for the dance began long beforehand. Choosing an outfit, often bought specially and costing a lot of money, going to the hairdresser for a fashionable hairstyle, discussing with friends who you would go with as a couple or a group, or who would invite you. Slow dancing to romantic ballads like Faithfully by Journey or Heaven by Bryan Adams were particularly important moments of teenage romance. It was where the first timid invitations, the first slow dances in the arms, the first kisses, the first declarations of affection, and of course, the first heartfelt dramas happened. Collect posters or magazines. A cool teenager's room in the 70s and 80s often resembled a personal shrine to his hobbies and idols. The walls were literally covered with posters of rock stars, Bon Jovi, Guns N' Roses, Metallica, Def Leppard, pop icons, Michael Jackson, Madonna, Prince, actors from trendy movies and TV shows, Johnny Depp after 21 Jump Street, Tom Cruise after Top Gun, Molly Ringwald after John Hughes movies, characters from Beverly Hills 90210 that appeared in the late 80s. Magazines like Tiger Beat, Bop, 16, Teen Beat for pop music and movie stars, Rolling Stone, Circus, Hit Parader, Cream for rock music, were table reads and the main source of information about fashion, music, movies, rumors, and the lives of stars. They carefully cut out photos, articles, interviews, collected collections of clippings into albums, exchanged rare clippings and posters with friends. It was a real fan ritual. In some rooms, the walls completely disappeared under a layer of posters and clippings, creating a unique interior that delighted guests and horrified parents when cleaning or moving. Interview sheets, stickers, and especially valuable large posters were often hidden from parents if there were too trendy or scandalous, in their opinion, photos or themes. The larger and more diverse your collection of posters and clippings, the higher your status among your collector peers, the more topics of conversation you had, and the more knowledgeable you were about the world of pop culture. The smell of printing ink from new magazines, the rustle of pages, the feel of smooth or rough poster paper are all part of this hobby. Whether it was in the school plays or the band, school in the 70s and 80s offered different paths to popularity and recognition, and sports weren't the only one. If you didn't shine on the soccer field, basketball court, or track, but had a talent for music or acting, you could find your niche and become cool in your own way. Playing in the school rock band, singing in the choir or band, participating in school musicals, or putting on plays in the theater club, getting the lead role in the school play. All these things made you a noticeable figure, attracted attention, and brought respect. Rehearsing after school, touring the school, performing at school events, concerts, assemblies, posters with your name or the name of your band on the school bulletin board. All of these were an element of school fame and recognition. Musical groups often performed at school parties, dances, or other events, gathering their audience of fans and admirers. Actors, too, were audience favorites, especially if they played romantic or comedic roles, eliciting laughter or delight from the audience. Being yourself, but also fitting in, perhaps the most important and subtle aspect of coolness in the 70s and 80s, which distinguished the truly respectable teenagers from those who were just chasing fashion, was not so much in blindly following trends or ostentatious rebellion, but in the feeling that you were on point, confident in style, and interesting as a person. The real cool teenagers were not always the loudest, the prettiest, the richest, or the leaders of formal groups. Often they were just charismatic, confident, sincere, and interesting kids who knew who they were, had their own hobbies, and were not afraid to express their opinions. It was felt in the way they held themselves, the way they entered the classroom, the way they socialized at recess, the way they joked or reacted to jokes. Self-confidence was infectious and attractive. It made a person stand out, interesting, and admired. Even the simplest clothes looked stylish and cool if they were worn by a confident person who felt comfortable in them. The ability to defend one's opinion calmly with dignity and wit in a conversation with a teacher or peers, without shouting and aggression, was respected. The ability to make friends, to support others, not to blindly imitate all trends, but to choose their own, to create their own unique style, was especially valued. People with a thing, an unusual hobby, a sharp sense of humor, a special way of speaking, or a unique outlook on life often became favorites and informal authorities. Real coolness back then was a difficult but important balance between expressing one's personality, authenticity, and the ability to feel the era, to find one's place in the social world of the school without losing oneself, to be interesting without bending to other people's expectations. This quality helped not only at school but also in my future life. That, friends, was the list of signs of real coolness for a teenager growing up in the 70s and 80s in the USA. Perhaps reading this, You recognized yourself, smiled, remembered the smell of plastic from an old console or how you secretly chatted on the phone late into the night, covered by a blanket from your parents. These details aren't just nostalgia, they're part of a whole era where being cool meant being yourself, but also definitely feeling like you were on the same page with the generation. It was a time when individuality was valued, but belonging to a group was just as important. It was a world without instant access to information, where each new trend or movie spread gradually, becoming part of the common experience. Thank you for being with us on this small but hopefully very colorful journey through time. These memories are our connection to the past, to that carefree or not so carefree time when trees were taller, gum was sweeter, and cool was defined by very different things than it is today. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new stories, facts, and memories of the 70s, 80s, and other amazing eras. Give us a like if you liked it and share your memories in the comments. See you in the next videos.